Morning, guys. Good morning. JMart, what's up, man? It is 2025. Happy New Year, man. How we feeling?
Feeling good, man. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's. A little
The
tired.
Right. I was gonna say I appreciate you getting up early. There's 3 games today. Figure out this college football playoff. I'm assuming we're gonna get one good game eventually here. Last night, Boise State really didn't put up a fight. Put up a fight for the spread. If you're interested in that, as they were trying to score a touchdown to cover at the end and they couldn't do it. Just kind of got worn out. Probably should have made their field goals. That would have helped. What was your main takeaway from the game last night?
It just felt like a levels matchup. Like you have Penn State, that's a really good team at basically beating teams they should beat, and Boise State kind of they just look like the worst team. It kind of felt like a Power Four team playing a Group of Five team when you look back on it. It's like they tried their hardest. They were a really good team all season, but at the end of the day, I think they ran the ball too much early. I didn't think they adjusted the game plan quick enough, and Penn State was just a little more clinical and was just better on their possessions.
Yeah, they got very little push up front. Genty just didn't seem to have the burst. I don't know if those 2 fumbles kind of took the wind out of them. Penn State was talking a lot of trash, but then Boise State had a chance. They had multiple chances, really, and then they just could not get it done, missing those 2 field goals. I didn't come away from the game thinking Penn State's going to beat Georgia. That's not what my takeaway was. So let's get right into it. I know Georgia's late game, but that's the one I want to start with. I don't see a pathway for Notre Dame. I've been thinking about it, going through it. I know Riley Leonard can run around, but he doesn't run around with the same type of energy that Jalen Milroe runs around. I don't feel it. I think Notre Dame's running backs are okay, but they didn't really run the ball great against Indiana. They had the one long run, and that was it. And I actually think Georgia will be better with Gunnar Stockton. Go ahead. Thoughts on Georgia Notre Dame? Start with when Georgia has the ball and Stockton, and how different it's going to be with him at the quarterback spot.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of like people really backing Gunnar Stockton, and I do like Stockton. I think he's a fun quarterback. I think you should expect a guy that plays a lot more like Stetson Bennett than Carson Beck. He's going to move a lot. He's going to run probably more than Bennett ever did. Like it's going to be a much more dual threat style. I don't trust his arm at all, though. The issue is if he gets backed up, if we see like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8 situations like that, I really don't like his ability to get the first down with his arm. I think he could scramble for it, but I do think the decision making is not really there. His release is really long when he throws the ball. Like if you watch back the Texas game, there are screen passes he's throwing that take a second longer than it should because he's just sitting there and he cannot get the ball out of his hand quick enough. I think they can move well. I do think the run game will be good against Notre Dame, and I think that he isn't enough of a downgrade for Georgia to lose. That being said, I think Georgia's going to win the game with the defense. I do think that we're going to contain the run really well. I think Riley Leonard's the biggest issue is just figuring out how to stop him from moving around a lot. But if they're able to contain him, if they're able to spy effectively, I do think Georgia wins pretty comfortably.
All right, so let me go back to Stockton for a second. Monken snatched him away. Ravens offensive coordinator was the offensive coordinator from Georgia. Snatched him from South Carolina. Made it a real point to get to him. Figured he was the heir apparent. That was one thing, and then second is he threw the ball, fairly well. Breaking all kinds of records down at high school. Why are you not trust his arm? Is it just because of what you saw in Texas, or am I missing something?
There's been a lot of rumors coming out about him in practice and that he isn't. It was prior to basically him breaking out against Texas. There was a lot of stuff coming out that he probably wasn't going to be the guy. If they had an offseason to do it, Puglisi may have Ryan Puglisi or Jaden Rashada might have actually beat him out for the Carson Beck's QB1 job. And another thing about the passing records, because it's all people talk about. Rabun County High School is like a 2A school. They're tiny. It is a very, very small school playing a lot of very, very small schools. So when you think about that, it's that same thing of like seeing a guy drop 80 points and like a really super small Catholic league. They're not playing the top teams in Georgia. So the numbers are really good because he's just way better than 2A football in Georgia. But I don't think it correlates as well as a lot of Georgia fans think it will to high level D1 football.
So he gets the starting spot now because they haven't had a chance to develop the other 2 guys on the roster, you think?
I think it's legitimately a situation where if you give him an offseason, if you give Rashada and Puglisi a legitimate shot to try and win the QB1 job with all the starters, I think they could beat him out. That being said, I want to be wrong. I want to come out and watch Stockton throw it all over the field on Notre Dame and look incredible. I'm just really not sold on the arm ability on him yet.
So how will he attack? Will it be to the tight ends over the middle? Will it be wide receiver screens? Obviously, they're talented on the outside, but they obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but if you've been paying attention, they lead the entire nation in drops. So what to make of that, and exactly what do you think the passing game looks like tonight?
I really like a tight end focused passing game. I think they've kind of always wanted to do that this year, but Beck's been just airing it out a lot more. I think you look back to those Stetson Bennett years when it was a lot. Oh, God, it was so much like Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers, all these guys. It was just constant, like funneling the ball to them. I expect more of that than I do of a Dom Lovett kind of game, an Arian Smith kind of game, because I think they're going to want to play safe, going to go to checkdowns a lot, going to go to tight ends on like short hitch routes and stuff like that. They want to stay ahead of the sticks with Stockton because you don't want to force him into a 3rd and 13 where he realizes to show off the arm, just because I don't think he has the same passing ability and conversion ability that Carson Beck does.
And then the running game, they got 3 guys, ETN's the leader of the crew. That's probably the key, right? You keep saying if it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, the dual threat of Stockton, the tight ends, excuse me, they'll probably convert those. 3rd and 5, you're saying it's like 50-50, if anything, favoring Notre Dame. So how's the running attack matchup? Georgia's offensive line hasn't been great, but I think it's got at least two NFL guys on there. So how do they match up against Notre Dame's defensive line, which lost their best player, I believe, against Indiana, but is still really strong against the run?
Yeah, they're a phenomenal run game. That's literally the X factor of the game is how do these defenses match up against the opposing team's run-oriented offenses. I like Georgia because I do think ETN and Nate Frazier, when they play together, are an incredible backfield duo. You have ETN that's a lot more, he's steady, he's shifty, he's going to like try, he's patient, he's going to try and find a hole, and once he like finds it, he just exploits it and goes for a good gain. You look at Nate Frazier, it's basically just you hand him the ball, he puts his head down and just runs forward and sees how many yards he can get. I think it'll work well. I do think they might be able to wear down Notre Dame, but they do also have to be prepared to try and throw some different looks at them because at the end of the day, I've said it this entire year, Notre Dame is one of the best run defenses in college football. It's not, I would argue it's probably the best. I expect them to be able to hold them down a little, but at the same time, I think Georgia is a really, really like it's a veteran group of offensive linemen. I think it'll be a good matchup.
I feel like last night's game helped Penn State had momentum. It looked like they carried that momentum from the SMU game into the game against Boise, and Boise had a hard time getting going. So in that respect, the rest hurt. For Georgia, it clearly is going to help because Stockton gets more reps. So from that angle, it certainly helps Georgia. But it really, really hurts Notre Dame because they lost their best defense player, Riley Mills, their defensive lineman, who got hurt against Indiana. So that's the price you have to pay for playing that game. Notre Dame's safety, Xavier Cross, or I think it's their defense. They got a couple guys, Watts and Cross. I get them confused, but it's a defensive tackle and a safety. Their corners are really good. The last thing I want to ask about this game from Georgia's offensive perspective is Notre Dame's going to play a lot of man coverage on the outside. Your boy Armani Smith, you usually have him for over long receptions. He, to me, seems like the key because if Georgia can get at least a couple big plays, so I'm sure they'll let Stockton at least throw it once or twice. How do you see Armani Smith playing against Notre Dame secondary?
Yeah, I mean, for Arian, it literally just comes down to no, it's good, but it literally comes down to if he's going to catch the ball. Like, I mean, he is open so often. He's really good at getting open.
Right.
He's not good at catching a football. Which is the most important part of being a wide receiver is catching it. I do think they'll run some play action looks. I really wouldn't be shocked if the first play of the game is some kind of play action set to Arian Smith to try and get those points on the board, trying to kind of punch Notre Dame in the mouth to start things off. I think you'll see a lot of that, but I think it will be more you're going for big gap plays. And again, the way they're talking, they're not going to like shrink the playbook for Gunnar Stockton. Whatever they think they have there, they trust him enough to just go open playbook, as many passes as he wants to throw, he's going to be throwing. I do kind of like that, and I do think Notre Dame could catch themselves out if they try and focus on stopping the run too much instead of focusing on his ability as a passer. Because at the end of the day, I know I shit on him for like 5 minutes earlier. He is still a guy that's capable of making a pass. He was a 5-star prospect.
Right. It all comes down to the offensive line. Like it sounds
Yeah.
like what his weaknesses are, getting the ball out late, probably has to see the guy open, those types of things when you haven't played. So if you give him an extra second or two, all of a sudden he'll look good. Riley Leonard on the other side, not an NFL quarterback, might get drafted, might sneak around, doesn't really have the arm talent. Tried to throw the game away early. Indiana got an interception early. They didn't really ask him to do much. They went to the one guy, I think 7 times. Everybody else caught the ball once or twice, ran the ball a lot. What happens on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5? Do you favor Georgia or Notre Dame when Notre Dame has
Um,
the
I really favor Georgia. I think their best option on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 is a QB run. I think like a scramble or something probably gets them more yards than an actual pass. I don't think they have the receiving talent to get open on Georgia. If Georgia runs man coverage, which they typically do, they've been mixing in some zones for some reason. I don't really know why, but Georgia can probably man them up, stack the box a little bit. They're going to need to because they're going to need to spy Leonard, and if they spy him effectively, I do like him there. That being said, again, he's really dangerous on his feet, but if they can make him unable to pass, it makes it a lot easier to defend the scramble.
So ultimately Georgia wins, but you think it's close?
Yeah, I think I coming into it, I was really nervous about it. I really thought Notre Dame had a good chance. I think Georgia can contain their run attack enough, force Leonard to throw more than he feels comfortable doing. I see it being like 4 to 5 points for Georgia.
Gotcha. Ohio State, Oregon. That's the game at what do they play at 5 o'clock Eastern. The Rose Bowl kind of fits Big Ten versus old school Pac-10, even though they're both now in the Big Ten. Anyway, Oregon, Ohio State. I think we've touched on it. I'm sure that if you're paying attention, the headlines are fairly obvious, right? It's hard to be a team twice. Ohio State could have won that game. It was in Oregon. Oregon won. Oregon's undefeated. Yet they're a couple point underdogs. Really, just from an X's and O's standpoint, let's start when Oregon has the ball. They were successful against Ohio State the first go round with a few explosive plays, but Ohio State was it kind of went back and forth. So how do you see it going this way?
I really don't see. I like Oregon a lot in this game. I think a lot of people bought into the Ohio State hype after the Tennessee game a little too much, without recognizing how bad Tennessee can be on the road, how bad Nico specifically can be on the road, and instead just seeing Ohio State killed Tennessee instead of thinking about the some of the externalities involved in that win. I look at Oregon again. It's a really composed team. It's a team with an extra week of rest, which in this situation is a really big deal because it's just they have more time to plan, they have more time to prep. I like Oregon here. I think that they are a more competent offense. I think they're more complete on offense. I think they're really good at stopping the run, and the whole thing with Ohio State. If you force Will Howard to throw the ball, if he's thrown 35 times a game, more likely than not, one of those is going to the defense. And I think they're perfectly designed to play to Will Howard's weaknesses.
Why did Will Howard have so much success then against Tennessee, especially in those first couple of drives? Beautiful long passes. Tennessee, I thought their defense was going to hang with them, and they just couldn't.
Again, it comes down to Tennessee's a horrible road team. Like they're legitimately terrible. I don't know why this year they're so bad on the road, but they are. And also like yeah, Will Howard, you don't want him throwing too much, but he's capable of good passes. He's been in college for 6 years. He's still a really solid quarterback, but again, you really don't want him throwing the ball as much as
You're
Oregon's
saying,
to.
yeah, and also you're playing with confidence. They were just up right away. This thing that happened in Boise yesterday, you missed that field goal to start the game, and you don't make the better team uncomfortable for at least 1 second. You're not going to have a chance to win the game, and you get them cruising. So that's what happened with Ohio State against Tennessee. You're right. What about when Oregon has the ball? Dylan Gabriel, dynamic, obviously the biggest, threat when Oregon has it. They got speed all over the place. Why will Ohio State struggle so hard to stop them?
I think they're just so complete. Like you were saying, speed everywhere. Dylan Gabriel's, well, I think he was probably the third best college quarterback this season. And they have a running back. What's his name? It's like Jordan James, I think, who's also been a 20 carry guy basically every week. That's really good with his legs as well. And you look at a team that has a guy that can run for 5 yards basically every carry, and you have a guy that can throw for 50 if he wants to per pass. I really just think that there's such a dangerous team at every level of the field that it's just hard to plan for. You just kind of gotta hope you get it right a couple times and hope you're able to get them in like a 3rd and 13 spot. But they're a really hard team to keep behind the sticks.
Coaching edge. We didn't really touch on the Georgia Notre Dame game because obviously Kirby gets the coaching edge. Marcus Freeman's a good coach. Hasn't been there before. Getting there, I feel like Notre Dame's program is getting there. I don't think they can beat the system and get Riley Leonard and beat a team like Georgia. You either have to get the elite quarterback or you're going to have to develop your own quarterback and go through some bumps and bruises. When you go to Oregon and Ohio State, it feels like we're dealing with the same coaches here, both trying to get over the hump, right? Ryan Day and Dan Lanning. Where do you see the coaching edge? Offense versus defense. Chip Kelly out there helping Ohio State. A lot of interesting things going on.
Yeah, it's a fun matchup because you have the Chip Kelly kind of, I guess, reunion game. It wouldn't really be a revenge one because he left them, but I like Dan Lanning a lot more than I like Ryan Day. I've not really liked Ryan Day basically for a couple years now. I think that if they want to legitimately win a national championship, I don't think he's the guy that can get them there with the talent they've had for the past couple seasons. And I think Dan Lanning, he's a great motivator. He's basically a reprint of Kirby Smart. Like he coaches the same style. He has the same mannerisms on the sideline. It's clear that he was an understudy for a really long time. I like his ability to win this game, but again, like you said, hasn't been here before. We'll see how he handles the pressure and stuff, but I do give the edge still to him as far as like X's and O's coaching.
Yeah, it feels like Lanning's taken a couple licks, right? Like he couldn't get it done last year. Was it the year before where Georgia just smashed them to start the season? I remember Kirby after that game. Now I live down here, I get a lot more Georgia coverage, but I remember him saying like that I just had more talent. That wasn't like a fair fight, which was you want to be complimentary of your former defensive coordinator. It was kind of a rough thing to say. Remember that game was in Atlanta. Georgia just like killed them the first week of the season, right?
Yeah.
And now Lanning, he's got all the dogs, right? Like now he's got all it's going to come down to him. Like if you come up with the right game plan, I would say Oregon's got just as much talent as Ohio State. Why do you think? What would be the argument for Ohio State winning the game? Because I do think more people favor Ohio State. At least what I've been listening to. So what do you think the argument?
Momentum both coming into the game and just in the game setting, just again like they did against Tennessee, scoring on their first drive, forcing an Oregon punt, scoring again. They're the kind of team that once they get rolling, they don't stop. And Oregon has been a team that's played a lot of other guys a lot closer than they should. They struggled a good bit against Boise State. Like you watch them kind of play the first half pretty close against teams they just shouldn't have been doing to open the season up. And I think you saw Ohio State dominate more of those games, but at the same time, they lost to Michigan. I think with Ohio State, it's pure momentum. It's if they can get going.
Sorry, keep going.
Oh, it's just simply like, yeah, if they get going, they're hard to stop. Oregon's more of a slow, controlled, steady team that punchy style of Ohio State could play really well against a more methodical team in Oregon.
Why did Oregon give up so many points against Penn State in the Big Ten championship?
I was watching that game. I think people shouldn't read into it too much. I think is like you'll watch games sometimes that just unravel and turn into shootouts. That's just ends up being the pace of the game. I think that's one of those things you can look at. I was watching it and just kind of thinking, yeah, it's just one of those games. It's a shootout. Like it's like Penn State's just playing really good offense. Oregon's playing really good offense.
Penn State had nothing to lose. It's like, they're just flinging it around.
Yeah, I think you don't need to look into it too much because I do think it is one of those situations where, yeah, it's just shootouts happen sometimes. Teams score a bunch. Like look at the NFL. Like so you have some games where you think the team's going to score 50 points total, and then they end up scoring 20. Have games where
is that your way of trying to make me think about the Giants? Is that your way of trying to make me think about the Giants Colts game again?
Basically, yeah. The perfect thing is, yeah, Giants Colts. No one thought that game was going to end up being what I think was like almost 80-point total.
Yeah, everybody had the Giants scoring 45 points at home with Drew Lock.
And like, that just happens sometimes. Like it's a human sport at the end of the day. People are just going to do weird stuff sometimes.
I do think when you're playing with nothing to lose, right? Penn State was in there no matter what. I'm sure they would have liked. Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't completely write that off because they would have gotten the bye. But they kind of were free willing it. They knew they were making the playoffs. Aller was throwing the ball. It was in a dome. So, all right, you got Oregon. You're on the record for that. You like Georgia. It almost seems like I like Georgia more than you. I just think that Yeah, Georgia's just going to be able to dominate up front. And I think the injury to the Riley Mills character, I think it's Riley Mills, the defensive lineman for Notre Dame, just absolutely kills them. Not enough depth as it is. Georgia now forces Georgia to run the ball. I think once you force, and then we'll get to Texas, Arizona State, but once you force Georgia's offensive linemen to have to be the best players on the field, then you get the best out of them. It almost feels like the spotlight was off of them this year. Carson Beck, let's throw it down the field. It's not Georgia football. Now that I'm the expert on Georgia football, but it is running, and just suffocating defense. And that's basically what you're going to get today. It's a great matchup against Notre Dame. Is it enough to win 3 games in a row? We'll find out, but I do think it's enough tonight. The Oregon game, I don't have much of an opinion on. You like Oregon. Texas, Arizona State. So that's the first game. Everyone likes Arizona State unless you're like a Texas fan, right? Because we're dying for something interesting to happen. Help me figure this out. How's Arizona State going to make this interesting? I know they got the running back Scatterbro, Burrow, whatever his name is, little Christian McCaffrey lookalike. So not to just pigeonhole white running backs, but that's what I'm thinking here on New Year's. That's what we kind of need. Christian McCaffrey type performance from him.
Yeah, I hate to be the guy to say it. Texas should win this game by like 20 points. Like it's like Arizona State is one of those. Think about how Boise State looked against Penn State. Arizona State runs a very similar offense, basically fully focused on I think Scatterbo, I think Scatterbro, one of those two. It's his offense and it runs through him. And Texas, at the end of the day, has been an elite run stopping team actually for like the past 3 seasons. Like they've been producing NFL talent at a really high rate on the defensive line. And I think that, trying to run straight into that Texas D line just isn't going to work. And like, I don't really care how good you are. It's such a good defensive line that you need to have some sort of passing threat that's at least competent enough to make them not stack the box. I don't necessarily think Arizona State has that. I think they could win this game if they go to throw into Scatterbo earlier. I think if they try and mix him in as a dual threat more, get him in space, that could move the ball down the field really well. But I think they're just too one-dimensional to be able to really hurt Texas. That being said, if they are able to come out and score, and then you see Quinn Ewers do some bullshit like throw a pick to like 3 defenders at once, like I can see Arizona State stacking it on. And then I don't think Ewers is built for a comeback, but I don't think he's going to need to come back in this game.
Got it. You like Texas a lot. Why did Clemson? I guess they were able to score some points against Texas. They just never really were in the game, but they were also not able to stop Texas. And that's kind of what you think is going to happen in Arizona State. Although they do have a lot of momentum, and I wonder. Let me throw this at you. I feel like Boise State thought they could win the game. Like, I wonder if Arizona State will play looser. I thought Boise State was just a little too tight. Maybe even going for that 4th and 2 to start the game instead of kicking the field goal. Then the guy missing the field goal 50 yards wide. Then they didn't go for the 4th and 1 at the end of the first half where it was like, dude, you can't get the yard. Like, that was a really bad sign. And then Penn State gets a field goal to end the half. I thought that was like, maybe Arizona State will just play like, hey, everyone thinks we're going to lose by 30 anyway. Is there an element that's in play, or do you think they're really just going to run the ball 1st and 2nd down up the middle?
I really hope that they have that like kind of mindset. I do think with the bye, it does kind of screw with you a little bit. They have more time to kind of sit and think about the game, which this is again another one of those situations where the bye hurts the team because they have way too much time spent not playing football and way too much time preparing to play football. It can mess with you a little bit. And Texas is rolling still. I thought they looked really good on offense against Clemson. Defense was a little questionable at the end, but again, I think it was one of those where they played a lot softer in coverage, just made sure they didn't give up the big play. I think Arizona State's I want them to play loose. I don't really see it happening though.
Got it. All right. And yeah, I know you had some NBA bets yesterday. We'll get some more of those coming. What we'll do is we'll do our next pod after week 18. So we'll go into the NFL playoffs and then start to get rolling more on basketball content. And look forward to that. So have a great day. Hope everybody enjoys the day off. It's like a weird day off because most people have work tomorrow. I guess maybe some people took the next couple of days off. If you did, good for you. If not, sorry. Enjoy the day. I know we got to wait all the way till late for Georgia, but that would be my favorite game. So at the risk of jinxing anything here. I do like Georgia a lot. We'll get your write-ups so everybody can see it. And yeah, that's that, man. So have a good day. I'll see you. We'll get back to next Tuesday, and I'll see everybody tomorrow.
Sounds good. See you,
Cool.
man.
All right, buddy.